Hey, watch it, Rob. That's the only hat I've got.
Oh, come along. You worry too much, old boy.
You know something, Robin? I was just wondering.
Killer arrows. Arrows wound and kill in some ways that are different, and some ways that are the same as bullets. Unlike in the movies, arrows rarely kill straight away. In fact, they rarely kill at all if treated properly, which is a surprising statistic shared with gunshot wounds. Single arrow and gunshot wounds, if treated properly, have survival rates over 80%. The average arrow wound is even less deadly than the average gunshot wound. Typically, an arrow kills by cutting, similar to a knife, and this becomes deadly if this cut damages arteries or organs. Once this damage becomes critical and there is enough blood loss, blood pressure drops and the brain becomes starved of oxygen, followed by death. Typically, a human would need to lose about 40% of their blood to die of this hemorrhagic shock. Unlike in the movies, arrows rarely are an instant kill weapon. Tactically, arrows are best fired at a target far away and en masse, where they can poke holes in advancing soldiers, who will bleed out as they move across the battlefield. Furthermore, unlike in the movies, arrows will never knock a target back. They do, of course, impart their kinetic energy into a target, but as living tissue behaves similar to water, the kinetic energy is absorbed in all directions by the body. This energy can cause some damage to the nervous system and pain, causing a person to fall, but they are likely going to fall in the direction they are leaning or moving. Most of the kinetic energy from an arrow will be used up penetrating and pushing the arrow through tissue. Bullets, on the other hand, produce far greater shock waves, with rifles and shotguns having upwards to 30 times the energy behind a projectile than an arrow. When a bullet hits a target, this energy produces a shock wave that causes the destruction of tissue in all directions beyond the path of the bullet. These shock waves can overwhelm the nervous system and cause a person to become incapacitated or fall over. Bullets can further change course in a body, bounce off bone and hard tissue, tumble, and generally cause more tissue damage than arrows. The deadliest of arrows are broadhead arrows, which are designed to have several sharp faces, giving the best chance to cause maximum bleeding. Some broadhead arrows even have saw-like teeth, so that when big game, for example, is hit, they bleed out quicker. These arrowheads, once embedded, essentially saw and slice in response to movement. Less deadly arrows used historically are arrows with arrowheads like the bodkin point. These were designed specifically for penetrating armor. So how did men react to being shot with arrows in combat? It wouldn't be unrealistic, in the heat of battle, to completely ignore an arrow hit if lodged in muscle. Ideally, archers would hit targets at range depending on factors such as armor. They would further fire as a group, each archer firing around 12 arrows a minute. This would have formations bleeding out and demoralized. These wounded men could, however, expect some sort of treatment for arrow wounds, even in medieval times. Treatments were the easiest if the arrowhead did not break from the shaft. Removing a shaft, however, was problematic, as they were natural plugs to help stop the bleeding. Medieval surgeons had forceps designed for removing arrows. Surgeons custom-made their tools. Most famously, Henry V was struck by an arrow in the face, which was successfully removed by a surgeon. The surgeon used a pair of special tongs that fixed to the interior of the arrowhead, buried 6 inches into his skull. There are countless stories of men surviving arrow wounds in battle, and even fighting without noticing they've been struck until the fighting is over. Removing arrows likely killed more men than the arrows themselves, either by damaging more tissue during the removal of the arrow, or by the infections that followed. There were a number of antiseptics used during ancient and medieval times. Turpentine was a fluid obtained by the distillation of pine tree resin. Honey has historically always been popular for its healing properties. Treatment might even include the use of wooden dowels to act as modern drains to keep the wound from festering. Cauterization was a technique sometimes practiced in medieval times, but modern research shows this can greatly increase the chance of infection due to increased tissue damage. Ultimately, most men might simply make do by wrapping the wound in a strip of cloth from their own clothing, maybe a bit of alcohol, and hoping for the best.
Ricky, you owe me 2 double cheeseburgers for cleaning up Julian's trailer.
I never said doubles, Randy. I never said fucking doubles. Where's my...
Alright, I'm Johnny. I won't string you along with too many bow jokes. I just want to thank you for watching, and I do hope you have a nice rest of your day.